You're being consumed, not physically, but mentally, and every day your attention is extracted, processed, and sold in a system that was never designed for your growth, but for your engagement. A system engineered to harvest your focus through notifications, endless scrolling, and subtle psychological triggers that pull you back in every time you try to step away. Because if you are constantly visible, you are constantly being consumed. Your thoughts become fragmented, your attention becomes diluted, and your time slowly becomes owned by something else, until, without realizing it, you become predictable, average, and ultimately replaceable. There is only one way out of this system, and it is not balance, it is not moderation, it is disappearance. You go ghost, not permanently, but long enough to break the pattern, long enough to regain control, because in a world where everyone is visible, invisibility becomes power, and those who understand this operate differently from everyone else. The modern world does not want you focused, it wants you distracted, because distraction is profitable. Your attention is the product, and every platform competes for it aggressively. Every notification is a trigger, every like is a reward, and none of this is accidental. It is behavioral engineering designed to create dependency through small, repeated dopamine spikes. Cheap pleasure delivered constantly until your brain adapts to it, begins to crave it, and eventually depends on it. Over time, this changes your ability to think. Scrolling becomes effortless. But deep thinking becomes difficult, sustained focus begins to feel uncomfortable, and tasks that require cognitive strain are avoided. Not because they are impossible, but because your brain has been conditioned to reject anything that does not provide immediate reward. And this is where the damage becomes visible. Deep work requires silence, sustained attention, and mental resistance. But a brain addicted to stimulation seeks escape. It chooses comfort. It looks for distraction, so instead of building something meaningful, you consume, you scroll, you react, and hours disappear without consequence. Days blur together without progress, and you remain active without advancing, busy without producing, existing within a system that rewards engagement but punishes depth. Now consider a basic economic principle. Scarcity creates value, and abundance destroys it. This applies not only to money and resources, but also to human presence. When something is constantly available, its value decreases. When something is rare, its value increases, and most people make themselves infinitely available. They respond instantly, they post constantly, they share everything, and in doing so, they reduce their own value. The elite operate differently. They understand scarcity, they protect their time, they limit their visibility, and they are difficult to access, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. Because focus requires protection, and protection requires boundaries. The Stoic philosopher Seneca observed that people are careful with money, yet careless with time, even though time is the only resource that cannot be replaced once it is spent. Most people give their time away freely through endless conversations, constant notifications, and continuous distraction, treating it as if it has no value, while those who achieve exceptional results treat time as their most valuable asset and guard it accordingly. Understanding that scarcity of presence creates intensity of focus, and intensity of focus creates results. The mechanics are simple in theory, but difficult in execution. The first step is total isolation from social media, not reduction, but elimination. No scrolling, no posting, no checking, removing the primary source of distraction entirely. Because partial discipline produces partial results, and partial results are rarely enough to create meaningful change. The second step is the implementation of deep work blocks, long, uninterrupted periods of focus where a single task is executed with precision, without multitasking, without interruption, because this is where real progress is made, not in fragmented attention, but in sustained concentration that allows complex problems to be solved and valuable output to be created. The third step is dopamine detox, the elimination of low-effort pleasure, reducing constant stimulation so that the brain can reset, relearning how to tolerate boredom, Because boredom is not the enemy, it is the gateway to focus, and focus is the gateway to leverage. And without it, nothing of significance can be built. This is not intended to be a permanent lifestyle. It is a phase, a controlled period of extreme discipline where the objective is not balance but creation, where you prioritize building over consuming, where your goal is to develop a skill, construct a system, or produce an asset that compounds over time. During this phase, your world becomes smaller, but your output becomes larger. Your social circle contracts, but your focus sharpens, and gradually your mind begins to change. It becomes quieter, clearer, more precise. You begin to think deeply again. You begin to execute consistently, and most importantly, you begin to produce tangible results. Now imagine maintaining this state for 6 months, no constant updates, no external validation, no daily noise, just focused, deliberate work while others are talking. You are building while others are posting. You are executing while others are distracted. You are compounding. When you return, the difference is undeniable, not because you explain it, but because it is visible in your results. Those who remained visible have little to show. Their habits remain unchanged. Their routines remain the same. Their outcomes remain predictable. But you have transformed. Your thinking is sharper. Your output is measurable. Your presence carries weight because it is supported by evidence rather than noise. This is the difference between those who talk about building and those who build in silence. Because silence is not empty, it is strategic. It removes external pressure. It eliminates comparison. It filters out distraction. And within that silence, real work is allowed to happen. When you re-emerge, you do not need to justify your absence. The results speak clearly, and they speak loudly, because they represent focused effort applied consistently over time, something that is increasingly rare in a world dominated by distraction. The final truth is simple and uncomfortable. Your time is running out. Not suddenly, but continuously. Each day, a portion of it disappears, and most people spend this time reacting, responding, scrolling, and consuming, trading their attention for temporary stimulation and receiving nothing of lasting value in return. The Stoics understood the brutality of time. They did not treat it casually. They treated it as finite because it is. You can recover lost money. You can create new opportunities, but time, once spent, cannot be reclaimed. Going ghost is not about isolation for its own sake. It is about reclaiming control, removing noise, and focusing on what actually produces results. Because in a world addicted to visibility, disappearance becomes a competitive advantage. If you want more strategic and unfiltered insights on focus, discipline, and wealth, subscribe, because this is not about motivation. It is about execution, and execution is what separates the 1% from everyone else.